Hello, everybody. I hope y'all are doing well on this Friday afternoon and that you have been enjoying a slew of fantastic videos that have been going up very recently. I have enjoyed learning how to make lemonade with Carrie, and Michael's morning guitar pages today was particularly inspired. Also, I got really mindful with a mindfulness exercise with Carrie. Highly recommend. And this very goofy character taught me how to make some sloppy joes in the quarantine kitchen, which I highly recommend. So I hope you guys are staying active and staying healthy. And I really hope that you're taking advantage of all this new content that is going up onto our YouTube page. Every day there seems like something new is popping up out there. So I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. And I have to say thank you very much to those of you who have been able to chime in and say hello to me while I have been live. That has just made me super happy, you guys. So thank you. Today we're gonna have a theater talk. You know, being able to run a theater class online is a pretty tricky thing to try to figure out. I am going to share with you guys some of my own story today in what brought me to theater and the ways that I have worked on theater. And I also want to share with you guys. Hey, Robin. Oh, miss you too. So good that you're able to join us this afternoon. I want to let you guys in on some secrets that I have learned about theater over the years. But also, I thought it would be fun to just share some cool theater background, theater facts, fun facts about theater and everything. I thought might be an interesting way to start our first theater talk. So let me just get myself organized here. I've got a whole slew of papers that I've been printing out all morning trying to figure out what am I going to talk about, you guys? Right. The first thing I wanted to talk about, kind of a just fun background, is the word theater. What is that word? Where does that come from? I definitely had learned a long time ago, but had to refresh myself with the ins and outs of where that word comes from. And I want to read you guys something that I discovered online about theater, the word theater, and the word, oh, my connection is unstable. Huh. That is all too, that's a little disconcerting. Let's see here, you guys. I'm getting an alert that my connection is unstable, which it certainly should not be. I am connected to my Wi-Fi, and my Wi-Fi is showing all of the bars. Technology and me are not really close friends. I'm really stretching my comfort zone to try to make these videos work. So please accept my apologies if there are moments where this may stop and start or something like that, but I'm gonna just keep trudging on, and hopefully this will still be visible and usable for you all. Hey Sam, good to see you too, buddy. So today's theater talk, I wanted to start with, I'm just gonna plow on ahead here and see what you guys come up with and what I come up with. Today's theater talk, I wanted to start with the word theater and the word auditorium. Okay. As far as languages go, theater comes from the ancient Greek word theatron, meaning a place for seeing, or some other translations call it a place to behold, which I kind of prefer. The word auditorium comes from the Latin word, and it roughly translates to a place for hearing. So theater, a place for seeing; auditorium, a place for hearing. Interestingly enough, we haven't adopted a word that means a place for seeing and hearing and opening hard candies during the quiet bits. But I do think the division line between theater and auditorium is a bit blurrier for a lot of us, because opinions vary on the usages of these words. The only consensus seems to be that rooms dedicated to the artistic performances tend to be called theaters, while rooms that are used for lectures or multi-purpose rooms are often more often referred to as auditoriums. So there we go, a little bit of theater history, or what some would call etymology, which is the history of words. So theater comes from the Greek and means a place for seeing, and auditorium comes from Latin and it means a place for hearing. So, moving right along, let's learn about the green room. As we all know, we have a green room at 7th Street for our productions. And there is a lot of stories out there, you guys, on where the word green room actually came from. Theater people are naturally inclined towards storytelling, so that we don't know. So what we don't know, we sometimes just make up. Many explanations for why offstage actors lounge in a room called the green room are great stories. Some of them have roots in history, and some of them do not. But none of them can lay claim to the complete truth. So there is a lot of mystery around this term, you guys. But these are several ideas that have been culled over from many different sources. Some say that early stage light was actually had a green tint to it. It was called limelight, and actors in that era thought that if they applied their makeup in a room that was painted green, the makeup would read better when they were under the green stage lights. So that's kind of an interesting story about the term green room. I had never heard that one before today, you guys. I have also heard that the green room name came from the spot where directly behind most stages, there is a large room where any faked plants would be stored from previous productions. And if they were not using fake plants in their production, all of them would be in that back room. And that it was then nicknamed the green room because of a lot of fake greenery. I thought that was kind of interesting. I had heard a version of that story before, and so I was glad it showed up in my investigations this morning. Other people have also said that many early stages, like in the very early beginnings of history, when theater was being done, has been done for thousands of years, you guys. And many of the early stages were actually set up outside. And so the area behind the stage was normally on a lawn. And some people said that's why where the actors hang out has been nicknamed the green room. That one I'm not so sure about, but interesting, very interesting. Okay, so Also, other stories that have gone around the rumor mill, so to speak, are that the actors' lounge was painted green because many found the color to be calming. And backstage during a big production, especially, I'm sure many of you know, can be a very stressful space. So maybe the reason why people congregated in a room that was green was because the color itself is a bit calming. I feel the same way about the color green, and I think that makes pretty good sense. So there's something interesting to think about. And the last one I thought was pretty funny that I came up with from a couple of different sources was that at the end of a production, in order for everybody to get paid, whoever was taking the tickets or the money for the production would come to the back room with all of the actors and divide up all of the money for the greens, and that's where everyone got paid. And so they called it the green room, because that's where you got your green after the show. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. There does not seem to be a definitive answer to why we call the rooms that actors hang out in green rooms. But I thought that was kind of fun. All right. Here's one little theater fact that I wanted to share with you guys that I had kind of forgotten about. Because we don't really use this term too much when we're putting on productions at 7th Street. Because at 7th Street, we don't have what's called a grid up above our playing space. Normally, in more professional theaters, they have a bunch of lights that are hung from the ceiling, you guys, on thick metal pipes that are set up in a crisscross action that they call a grid. And whenever you are working in a theater, you are underneath a grid. And a lot of stage hands sometimes have to be working up on the lighting fixtures while you are rehearsing underneath them. And so they're up there on a big ladder and they're working on a lighting fixture, wrenching around on something or changing the focus or the size of a lens or all sorts of different things. And if a stagehand loses anything while they're up from that high, it could fall down on the actors while they're rehearsing. Oh my gosh, that sounds a little dangerous, you guys. And so there used to be a tradition where stagehands would yell out the word heads. Okay. And I heard this all through my college years and my first years of professional acting. And stagehands yelling out heads was a warning that something was about to fall or was already falling. It could be a wrench, a cell phone, an out-of-balanced line set, or basically anything that responds to gravity that has suddenly become unrestrained and is now falling down to the playing space. Truthfully, one of two things happens. What is supposed to happen, number one, is that you are supposed to cover up your head defensively with your arms, awaiting what might be a painful blow from a falling object. So if someone yells heads, you're supposed to cover your head and make sure that you don't get hit too bad. But what happens a lot of times, because this has kind of fallen out of fashion, I think, this term, heads, is that a lot of people just look up. Like when people say heads up, and with their mouths open and leaving their teeth and fragile facial bones very vulnerable to the exposed falling object. Sadly, more of us do the second one than the first one. But if you are working in a theater and you ever hear the word heads, you should not look up, but you should duck and cover, okay? So there's a little more fun theater history for you all, or theater facts. Okay, so I've got another interesting theater fact for you guys that I'm not sure if you guys were aware of. But for a very, very, very long time, it was thought to be bad luck to whistle on stage. That kind of a thing, okay? And there is a very, very interesting and specific reason why. And I had heard about this a long time ago and kind of had forgotten what the specifics were. So I want to share them with you guys today. Theaters used to hire sailors as stagehands, often as riggers because they knew how to handle ropes and tie knots, and occasionally as costumers because they knew how to sew from repairing sails and ropes and nets. So in the days before walkie-talkies and headsets, which are what are used to call cues and how crews communicate with each other backstage, cues were called by using whistled commands that the sailors were familiar with from their day jobs at sea. If someone whistled a happy tune backstage just by accident, they might accidentally call a cue and drop the mountain backdrop during a drawing room scene. Or a wagon might roll on stage over the stage manager's foot. Or a curtain might close right before that suspenseful scene where our story's murderer is finally revealed. So, in this case, it's this example is an example of old superstitions die hard. And since we don't whistle cues anymore, it doesn't seem like it's really that necessary. But for some reason, that tradition has very much carried on. And even modern theaters today, a lot of them observe a no whistling on stage rule. Huh. That's kind of surprising. I didn't know about that one. Okay, so here's one that I think many of you might be familiar with. A little fun theater fact about the Scottish play, all right, which is Shakespeare's Macbeth, okay? As far as crusty old superstitions go, this is one of the theater world's oldest and crustiest. Technicians and actors alike avoid saying Macbeth inside the theater, lest it bring bad luck to their production. Explanations are many and varied, like most superstitions, and refuse to be pinned down to one truthful, factual event. The best we've heard is that early players believed that the witches' incantations in the play were truly curses, and that the productions of Macbeth were suitably plagued with disasters brought by the scripted spells. Avoidance strategies include referring to the play when you are inside of a theater as the Scottish play, or using the term the M word instead of saying Macbeth, or calling the main character by many of his other titles, like the Thane of Cawdor, or one of my personal favorites that a lot of my friends used when I was in college was the word Mackers. Instead of saying Macbeth, they would just call the character name Mackers, which is kind of fun. Luckily, there is a remedy if you accidentally say Macbeth inside of a play or a theater. You are supposed to do this to undo the spell. You are supposed to spin in place 3 times and then spit. But I really think that is quite silly, and I know a lot of people that do not pay attention to this superstition at all, and myself included. I very much have heard the word used in many theaters, in school and professional theaters, and I don't think there's a lot of people that take it super seriously anymore, but still a fun theater fact to know. So, all right, moving on to our next theater fact. Theater ghosts and the ghost light. Many theaters claim to be haunted. I know, scary, but I'm not too worried. Sometimes with kindly, arts-loving souls, but more often with mischievous imps who hide makeup and small props or leave lights on or lock important stage access doors right before someone's entrance. But wait. Before you assume that the theater and theater people are completely crazy, I encourage you to take this with a grain of salt. Theater people are naturally inclined towards storytelling. So what we don't know, we often just sometimes make up, which should sound familiar. We can amend that to include, it's easier to blame small disasters on a ghost than it is to pin it on the real and likely perpetrators, ourselves. Combine a dislike of facing consequences with a talent for storytelling, and voila! Enter the ghosts of the theater. But there is one part of this superstition or tradition that is still very much alive today, which is called the ghost light. A single bulb on a stick standing in the middle of a dark stage is lit at the end of each night. It is called the ghost light. Ostensibly, it is left on in the darkened theater to keep the ghosts company, so they don't get angry or ruin any productions. But more often, it is left on for legal purposes. Legally, it is left on so that the first people into the theater in the morning don't trip over bits of scenery or fall off a hidden stage edge and get angry and sue the production. So anyway, that is a little history about the ghost light. All right, I've got a few more drama facts for you all, or theater facts, and this one is particularly fun. Drama versus theater. To tackle the differences between drama and theater, we must return to the study of etymology, which is the discovering of the history of words. It is not the study of Entenmann's chocolate glazed donuts, okay? Etymology is the study of the history behind words. Drama and theater often mean the same thing. Sometimes they mean similar things. Other times they're very separate definitions. And so it can get a bit confusing. So let's break it down in some really, really simple terms. Drama refers to events unfolding or emotions unfurling that insist upon your immediate attention, whether in real life or staged. It doesn't matter to the meaning of the word. So really, drama is about those moments or events that insist upon your attention. Theater, on the other hand, refers to the art form that happens when doing staged bits of drama in person in front of a live audience. Usually, it includes getting some money in exchange, but it is sometimes given away for free. And theater is also used to describe the building where that art form occurs. Okay, so drama is about the event that really grabs one's attention immediately, and theater is about the art form of doing staged bits of drama, and it also refers to the actual building where that art form takes place. So there's a little breakdown of drama and theater. I thought you guys might enjoy that. All right, finally, I got one last theater fact for you all. Oh, I love these comments over here. Thanks, Sam. How do you get on stage without looking like you don't know what you're doing? Basically, this is a discussion about stage directions, which I know many of you are familiar with, but it never hurts to review. Stage directions are based on one imaginary actor standing at the center of the stage and facing the audience. The actor's left is referred to as stage left. What is on the actor's left when they are standing center stage and facing the audience is what is referred to as stage left. What is on the actor's right is stage right. If you have any questions about that, just think about it. Stage directions are from an actor's perspective while they are standing on stage, center stage. Now, what about upstage and downstage? What's that all about? Early stages were often what's called raked. So instead of being relatively flat, they were pitched down like this, so that if you have an actor who is standing center stage, if they were to walk to the front edge of the stage, they would actually be walking down, okay? And if they were standing center stage and then they walked up or back to the back of the stage, they were actually walking up because of that angle, okay? So instead of a flat stage, a lot of stages were pitched down so that the audience could see people that were standing behind each other. There we go. That is our review of stage directions. They are from the actor's perspective on stage, and the upstage and downstage is about that, remembering that tilt, basically. And if you walk towards the audience, you are going which direction? I hope you all are answering at home. It is, ding, 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 downstage. And if you walk to the back of the playing space, normally we're up against where the set would be, you are walking where are you walking? I hope you're answering at home. And it is, ding, 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 up stage. Okay, so there's a few fun theater facts for you all today. All right, now I'm gonna read you all some theater. I'm gonna share with you guys one of my favorite bits of text from one of my favorite playwrights. When I first started doing theater, you guys, I was in high school, and I was singing in the choir in my high school. And this very nice young lady that I knew in my choir came up to me and said, "Hey, Zach, you've got a strong singing voice. You should try out for the spring musical." And I was like, "What is it? What? What's a spring musical? I mean, I'm on the track team, okay?" And she convinced me that this activity would be a lot more fun than going to a bunch of track meets. And I'm really glad that she did, you guys, because this is where I first got bitten by the theater bug. And I got cast in a production of Oliver, which many of you might be familiar with. And I had a huge, huge role, you guys. The name of my character was Bookseller Number 4, okay? I had 2 lines in the whole play. And I'm being silly in saying that I had a really huge line or a huge part. But there are no small parts, guys, only small actors. So I took this very, very seriously, and really I was on stage to fill out the singing portions of the play. And so I was often backstage singing along with the people who were on stage, or I'd be on stage sort of tucked away in the back. But they knew that I was a guy that could sing. And so that's how I got into theater. And I had so much fun on that. The next fall, they did a audition call for what is called a straight play, a play without music. So my first play was what's called a musical, a play with music embedded into the story. And then my second play was a play that you all might be familiar with. And I actually still have the copy from 16-year-old Zach from my second play that I ever did. And it introduced me to one of my favorite playwrights. And the name of that play was Romeo and Juliet. And here it is, you guys. Here's my copy that was given to me when I was 20 years younger. 16-year-old Zach got cast in this production. And when I look through, I can see some of my lines. I was cast as the character's name was Abraham, and I had a couple of lines in the very first scene of the play that a lot of people are very familiar with. I was a part of the group of gentlemen that get into a little bit of a fight right at the beginning of the play. And one of the famous lines that I got to say was, "Do you bite your thumb at us, sir?" And looking back over this script, I am reluctant to admit that aside from highlighting my lines and writing a few little notes, this note right here, I wonder if you can see it, written right up here. That is my blocking note. So I have one blocking note for a whole scene that I moved around in a lot. And yep, I got no notes on the next page, and I got no notes on the next page. Oh my gosh, you guys, I didn't really know what I was doing yet. Many of you at 7th Street take far better notes in your scripts than I was doing when I was 16 years old in high school, because I didn't really know yet what you were supposed to do. So I wrote walk in front of Sam, which was my fellow actor's name. So I was Abraham, and this gentleman in my high school days, whose name was Sam, was the character Balthazar. And we got into a little bit of a fight right at the top of the show. So I wanted to show you guys this because I also wanted to share one of my scripts from the last play that I did in my undergraduate years at Chico State. And the last play that I did, I got cast in this play called Natural Selection, which is a modern comedy all about a guy who is running a theme park in the not too distant future. And I was cast as the guy who was running the theme park. And so what I wanted to show you, though, is how far along my note-taking became. This is right at the in the very first page of the script, and I was in the very first scene, and I was on stage for almost the entire play, which means I was in every single scene. Kind of like Kinley and Diane in A Dark Wood, where you guys are on every single scene. That's the kind of role that I had in this play. But if you look closer, you will see I got a lot better at taking notes, you guys. I have my script broken up into what are called French scenes, which means that technically a new scene starts every time a new character walks onto stage. And it's a really good way to break up scenes when you're working with large casts, especially. And one of my favorite directors, Cynthia Lammel, taught me about French scenes. And ever since then, every play I've directed, I've broken up into French scenes so I can keep it all straight for myself as a director. But in this production, I was an actor. And if you can read closely here, you will see in brackets, I have new actions to play for different lines. And what I wanted to do today is I wanted to share with you guys some of my first actions that I figured out. So in the very beginning of this play, my character has a lot of what are called truncated lines, where I start to say something and then I get cut off by another character because the other character was telling a really big story. So just in the first 2 pages, this is what my lines sounded like. Oh my God, glittering? Oh my God, oh God, oh dear God, oh God, Ernie, how do I get help? Oh God, Ernie, I know, but I remember. Oh man, Jesus, Ernie, I can't imagine. Well, I can't, I can't. Okay? So I have all of these lines that are barely even lines. And they were really, really tricky for me to like figure out what the life was going, how to inject some life into those lines that were so tiny and short and constantly getting cut off. And I would like to think that my acting was probably better in the moment than what I just shared with you guys right now. But what I wanted to share with you guys from my process was the types of notes that I was taking for myself to try to unlock this script and make it seem more natural and more believable. So on my very first line, I have to entice. That was the action that I was playing towards my fellow actor in the scene as I was trying to entice him to share more with me. Okay, so it's not just enough to learn your lines. You've got to know who you're speaking to and why you're speaking to them. Okay, this is what actions are often referred to as, or sometimes they're referred to as tactics, or sometimes they're referred to as objectives. These are all interchangeable terms, okay? So my first objective was to entice my scene partner to tell me more. And then next to that, I also wrote down my subtext. Wow, I was writing a lot more down, you guys. And my subtext that I wrote down was, I can't believe you're here. So all of that is going into the one line, oh my God. Okay? My next line, I didn't change my objective because I was still trying to entice my fellow actor to tell me more, but I did write down some different subtext. And my subtext for that line was, the line itself was just the word glittering with a question mark. And my subtext for that line is, that doesn't sound natural. Oh, interesting. So what's happening is the other character is saying, I looked down at my arm and it was glittering. And then my character responded with the word glittering? Question mark. And my subtext for that is, that doesn't sound natural. Okay, so I'm trying to add that in underneath saying my line. All right, my next line, which is the same as my first line, is, oh my God. But I need to find a different way to say this, guys, or the audience is going to get really bored of my performance really quickly. My next, this is when I changed my objective for the first time. Instead of trying to entice my friend in this scene to tell me more, now the friend shares something with me that makes me just think, this is the coolest story I have ever heard. And so my new objective on my third line is to worship. I was changing from tell me more, tell me more, tell me more to you are incredible and I want to worship you because of everything that you have done. And then I wrote my subtext underneath that is you are a god among men is what I wrote. And that was all just for the line, oh my God. My fourth line in this scene was just the word, oh God, or the line, oh God. Again, very repetitive. So this takes a lot of work to figure out what it is you're saying and how quickly things can change. And I didn't change my objective, but I did write down some different subtext for this fourth line, which was, that sounds serious. So I changed from saying, if I just read my subtext for my first couple of lines, basically what I was saying was, I can't believe you're here. That doesn't sound natural. Whoa, you are a god among men. And then that sounds serious. So maybe now you can see all of the work that goes into trying to discover a natural exchange between two characters on stage. It's not just about what you're saying. It's about what you're saying underneath the lines, which is your subtext. And then it's also about what you're trying to, how you are trying to affect your fellow actors, which is what objective is about. And that's what those different verbs that I was playing, to entice, to worship. Some more verbs I have, to nurture on the next page, to retreat, to diffuse the situation. Okay, I was coming up with some pretty good objectives for this production, and I am so glad that I held on to this old script so that you guys could see how far I came from 16-year-old Zach to, I think this was like 22-year-old Zach, or 23-year-old Zach in my last year at Chico State. But it took me a while, and it took me a lot of theater classes at Chico State to learn all of those different things that I needed to be doing with every single script. So what I wanted to share with you guys today are a list of what I would consider really juicy verbs. What do you mean by that, Zach? Juicy verbs? Come on, it's not a lemon. No, it's not. But these are the types of verbs that I would consider very playable in a scene. They're the types of verbs that normally when people think of them, they immediately think of an idea of how to play something. Okay, so this comes from a fabulous book, Joanna Merlin's Auditioning is the name of the book. It is on page 59. I just have a copy of it here, but I also have the original book right over here, which I'll show you guys in a minute. But this is what I mean by objectives and verbs, okay? These are all in alphabetical order, so I'll kind of just skip around. To awaken. That's an interesting one. To annihilate. Oh, that's a very different kind of a word. To bombard. To bang. To balance. To console. To corrupt. To dazzle. To embrace. To fill. To flatten. To jolt. To intimidate. Okay, when I think of that word, I have a very strong response, and I have an idea of how I would try to intimidate another person. Even though I'm not a very big person, I could probably figure out other ways to try to intimidate them. Okay, to plead with someone. I'm sure you all are familiar with that word. When you really want something really, 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 really bad, you're pleading with someone. To mold, to mask one's intentions. Oh, that sounds a little fun to play. To not show them what it is exactly that you want in that moment. Sometimes that can be a very effective tool inside of a scene. To push, and that doesn't mean physically push that person, but to push them with your words, okay? Sometimes actors get really, really comfortable on stage, and you need to push them as your fellow actor to try to get them to say something maybe they don't want to say. To tempt, maybe by sweetening the deal somehow, I don't know. To unite or to soothe. You know, whenever I think of that word, I think of my mother and my mother's voice. Whenever I was upset as a little kid, my mother's voice was always very soothing to me. And she would kind of slow down and she would talk very slowly and very calmly. And it was just a soothing feeling. It made me feel better even when I was very upset. That's the type of action or objective or tactic one can take with another actor in a scene, okay? These are all just ideas for actions, okay? So I wanted to share some of those. I'll try to share some more each time I do this. But now it's time to move on to our last little bit of fun that we're going to have today. Since I started off on my thought process in addressing you guys about my fond memories of my second play I did, Romeo and Juliet, I thought that I would share some Shakespeare with you guys. And I'm going to read a passage from one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, which is Hamlet. And then I'm going to explain what the passage actually means. Because Shakespeare used a whole different set of vocabulary, a whole different set of words, and often made up a lot of words that we still use today. And so when approaching Shakespeare classics, like we did in one of our last acting classes together, that I remember Richard led, and there were many of you that read some Shakespeare in the form of a soliloquy that was wonderful. I thought it would be fun to share with you guys one of my favorite speeches from the character of Hamlet from the play Hamlet. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the story of Hamlet, the very popular Disney film, The Lion King, uses the plot structure of Hamlet. So The Lion King is really based on an old Shakespearean play. So this is a speech from Hamlet. And I want to kind of set this up for you guys so that any of you who are not familiar with the story will have an idea of why Hamlet is saying these things that he is saying. So Hamlet is a prince. He is a prince of Denmark. And his father, at the very beginning of the play, has just passed away. And he is very sad about it. And his mother has gotten rather quickly remarried. And it does not sit very well with Hamlet at all, especially because back in those days, it was not seen as kind of a weird thing if somebody passed away in your family. You would just remarry a different family member sometimes, which sounds so weird to us people in the modern age. But apparently it was very, very commonplace back in those days. So Hamlet's mother has remarried the younger brother of Hamlet's father, his uncle, okay? And Hamlet is super suspicious of his uncle. He does not think his uncle is on the up and up. He thinks there is something rotten in Denmark, okay? And he is really, really not sure about this uncle being in his house, and he wants to know if this uncle is up to no good. So Hamlet invites a group of actors to their castle to perform a play. So there's a play within the play of Hamlet. And when Hamlet gets these actors arrive at his house, he has a very, very important speech to give to all the actors. He does not want the actors to play this play like a big, over-the-top melodrama. Hamlet wants them to be as realistic as possible so that Hamlet might be able to watch his uncle during this play, within the play, and see if that uncle has some interesting responses to what's going on in the play. Hamlet's kind of using this play within the play to spy on his uncle and see if his uncle, behaves differently while watching this play. But it's very important to Hamlet that the actors perform it as realistically as they possibly can. So this speech is commonly referred to as Hamlet's Advice to the Players. And the word players is the term that they used to use back in the day for actors. They called them the players, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to read Hamlet's Advice to the Players to you in the original Shakespearean verse, and then I'm going to read like a modern day translation of what he's actually saying. Okay, there we go. I'll give you my best Hamlet for you guys. All right, I'm going to sit up appropriately, find my breath, okay, because there's a lot of words. And don't worry, if there's words that you don't understand, I'm going to explain them all right after this. Okay. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. But if you mouth it, as many of your players do, I had as lief the air-town crier spoke my lines. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hands thus, but use all gently. For in the very torrent, tempest, and, as I may say, the whirlwind of passion, you must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness. Oh, it offends me to the soul to hear a robustious, periwig-pated fellow tear a passion to tatters, to very rags, to split the ears of the groundlings, who for the most part are capable of nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. I would have such a fellow whipped for o'erdoing termagant. It out Herods Herod. Pray you avoid it. Be not too tame, neither, but let your own discretion be your tutor. Suit the action to the word to the action. With this special o'erstep not the modesty of nature, for anything so overdone is from the purpose of playing, whose end both at the first and now was and is to hold as 'twere the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her own feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time his form and pressure. Now this overdone or come tardy off, though it may make the unskillful laugh, cannot but make the judicious grieve. The censure of the which one must in your allowance or weigh a whole theater of other players. Oh, there will be players that I have seen play and heard others praise, and that highly, not to speak it profanely, that neither have the accent of Christians, nor the gait of Christians, pagan nor man, have so strutted and bellowed that I have thought some of nature's journeymen had made men and not made them well. They imitated humanity so abominably. Oh, reform it altogether, and let those that play your clowns speak no more than is set down for them. For there will be of them that will themselves laugh, to set on some quantity of barren spectators to laugh too, though, in the meantime, some necessary question of the play be then to be considered. That's villainous, and shows a most pitiful ambition in the fool that uses it. Go, make you ready. All right, so there's a little bit of Hamlet for you all. Some very famous lines are in there, but I'm sure many of you, as I was when I first heard these words, left me going, I kind of understand a few things that he's saying. I can tell that he is talking very passionately about these actors being actors and taking it seriously. But I discovered today a wonderful, what I would consider a more modern day translation of what Hamlet is saying. And so I want to share that all with you now as Hamlet's advice to fellow actors. And really, it's William Shakespeare's advice, who was a fabulous director and writer of plays, and his thoughts about acting and what he thought good acting was. All right, here we go. Our modern day translation. Say your lines, I beg you, as I taught them to you, in a lively and forward-moving manner. But if you must just play the mood, as many actors often do, I would have preferred a news reporter spoke the lines, because that would be much better. Also, don't over-gesture with your hands too much, but use movement simply. Because even in a fit of passion, you have to acquire a relaxation as an actor that gives the work a smoothness. It annoys me to no end to hear unruly actors with great big wigs and great big voices become overly passionate and wail so loudly that the audience has to put their fingers in their ears to ease the pain. I would have an actor beaten for being so melodramatic, like in the old plays where actors playing Herod would just rant at the audience. Please, I beg you, avoid that. Don't be too under-energized either, but simply trust your own instincts. Match the action of the scene to the words and give the words a simple action. And in this way, don't let your acting become unnatural, for anything over the top is not helpful in theater. The purpose of theater is to imitate nature, to show her truth to the world. Now, if it is over the top or poorly performed, though it might make the common folk laugh, it cannot really affect the mindful audience members. You must always play to your entire audience. I have seen actors and heard actors being praised who don't have an accent, a walk, or anything resembling a normal person, that they have imitated humanity so badly that they literally didn't appear to me to look like a human being. Correct this behavior altogether, and let those that play the comical characters say no more than is written for them in the script. Do not pause for their ad-libs. which means adding in extra stuff just to get extra laughs. For though they might make a small group of their friends in the audience laugh, the rest of the audience misses the importance of the play's plot points. This is a disgraceful practice and shows that the actor is an attention seeker. Now go. Get ready for your play. Okay, you guys. I hope that you will... oh, hey there, Sam. I do not think that I will be able to bring on any guests during these YouTube videos because of our quarantine, and especially famous people that I may have met once upon a time, but I don't have I don't have Jennifer Hudson's phone number, Sam, and I doubt that she even remembers me. So that would be a really, really difficult thing to pull off. I know what you're referencing, that story that I told you about how one time when I was working in New York, I worked at Jennifer Hudson concert. But I'm not going to be able to bring her onto my YouTube live channel, Sam. But I really appreciate you chiming in this afternoon, and any of those of you who are out there paying attention and listening. This was our first theater talk episode. I hope you all learned some things, and I hope you all were listening to the words that Shakespeare is trying to share with all of us about good acting, and about taking it seriously, and about trying to be as naturalistic as possible, and not blowing things up into these huge proportions that don't make sense in real everyday life, and just speaking truly from the heart. Okay. I hope you all have a great, great afternoon out there. I hope you soak up some sun if you can. And I hope that you are all staying home and staying safe. Okay, you guys, I'll see you again soon.